Welcome to this webinar. My name is Lone Kørnøv, and I am presenting on behalf of the consortium for our EU project called BioValue. And I am hosting, or this webinar is held by Aalborg University from the Danish Center for Environmental Assessment. And the speakers of today will be the project leader, Maria Partidario from Portugal, and my colleague Søren Eliasen and myself. And we have, or this webinar is focusing on benchmarking biodiversity, and will present part of our results in the project. This part of the project concerns integration of biodiversity in environmental assessment, which I will share more with you. But first, I would like to give the word to Maria Partidario to introduce the project. This is, I could say, just for a short note here, that this is the second webinar in a series of 4. And after Maria has introduced our project, the BioValue project, I will continue with the presentation of some of the results we see from this benchmark, where we have explored how are we actually doing in using impact assessment as a means for supporting and enhancing biodiversity. So I will present to you some of the results before we will have 4 breakout rooms, and these will be country breakout rooms, which means that you can speak in your mother tongue in the breakout rooms, and there will be a chair with you who will host the breakout room and take notes and be the one that feed back into the wrap-up session at the end of the webinar. So, Maria, are you?
I am, indeed.
You are? Thank you. Then I will give the word to you and for the presentation.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all, and very good to have you with us in the second webinar of the BioValue project. The BioValue is an Horizon project of a 3 years Horizon project, which will be completed next year, 2025, and which objective is to well, as you say here in the slide, safeguard and increase biodiversity by better articulating 3 instrumental perspectives, which we explore both individually and also in a combined action. These instrumental perspectives are spatial planning, these instruments, the 3 instruments that we're working with, are spatial planning and management instruments, environmental assessment instruments, and economic and financing instruments. So what we are aiming is to explore how we can increase the value of biodiversity in spatial planning by making the individual but also combined use and action of these 3 instruments towards achieving transformative change. So by doing this, the BioValue project, which is currently one of 12 European projects that are working towards this transformative change towards in biodiversity, is the only project that is working with spatial planning and with this combined instrumental perspective. Next slide, maybe. Where we, as part of the agenda of the project, we are working with 3 arenas for transformation, which work a bit as demonstration cases, representing different or distinct spatial planning systems, cultures, scales, and biodiversity-related situations. In all of them, we're doing exactly the same use of the 3 instrumental perspectives, and both in terms of individual and combined action. So the three arenas are one in Portugal, which is Mafra municipality, one in Germany, which is the Mecklenburg-Vorpommern federal state. It's re-wetting peatlands case. In the Mafra municipality was a municipal spatial planning. So they're developing, or part of the development of their municipal development plan. And in Trento municipality, which is the third arena, in Italy, we're working with the regeneration of an urban river, which is, so therefore, the three cases are quite different and different also in terms of scale and biodiversity issues. And next, yeah, we're doing this. So BioValue is a consortium of different partners that can all be seen in this slide. There's the academic partners, which includes IST in Portugal, the University of Trento, the Centrum for the Environment and the Helmholtz Center for the Environment in Germany, and Aalborg University in Denmark. Then we have the dissemination communication partner, ICONS, and three the case study partners, which are two municipalities, the Commune de Trento and the municipality of Mafra, and an NGO, which is the Kono Consulting. NGO, actually a consulting company. And I think this may conclude the presentation of the... So we started in July 2022 and will be completed in July 2025. And I think this completes the presentation of the project. Yes.
Thank you, Maria.
Over to you.
And as you can also see that it's a very ambitious project, and we are operating with different instruments in different geographies as well. And what we today will present is only related to work package 2, the one concerning environmental assessment instruments. But at the end of the presentation today, or at the end of the webinar, we will also ask you if there are other parts of the project that you are more curious about or would like to learn more about. Then we are more than happy to share and also engage with you and listen to your perspectives. So you can keep that in mind while we go through the webinar today. As I mentioned in the beginning, the focus is on benchmarking biodiversity. How well are we integrating biodiversity in environmental assessment? And this is the second webinar. The first one concerned the spatial planning instrument. There will be a third webinar in September, where you're also more than welcome, concerning the economic and financing instruments. And later, a date to be confirmed, we are looking into what Maria also introduced, how the different arenas, the lessons learned from the different transformative, or from the arenas and the transformative change through these different instruments that we're working with. I will make a short introduction to work package 2, why we have chosen also to explore environmental assessment as an instrument for this overall purpose of enhancing biodiversity and creating transformative change when it comes to biodiversity, before I will present some of the results. The overall objective of this work package that I'm leading is to understand the transformative potential of environmental assessment instrument in impacting and protecting biodiversity. And we are, as Maria also mentioned, we are exploring the instruments individually, but we're also seeing them in combination with the other instruments. And in this work package, we are focusing upon environmental impact assessment, the EIA, the assessment of projects, and the strategic environmental assessment, SEA, of plans and programs. And we are doing that, or we have chosen that, because these two levels of assessment, they represent different levels of planning, different levels of decision making. So they very much complement each other. The strategic level of assessment towards where we more open up for different visions, alternatives, scenarios, and at the project level, it's more operational. We're at the operational level where less opportunities are possible, also for in relation to biodiversity. And we have chosen EIA and SEA because they are mandatory assessments across member states, which also means that we can transfer the knowledge that we gain from this project to also to share with other member states. And the thing is also that the role of EIA and SEA is recognized not only by the European Commission as an important instrument for at an early stage considering different alternatives when alternatives are open, but it's also recognized as international organizations for important arenas, important processes where we can consider biodiversity. Another aspect or another argument for why the EIA and SEA are good representations of environmental assessment instrument is that we have a very broad concept of environment in these two directives underlying the practice across Europe, which support a system thinking. So even though the project is concerned with biodiversity, we are also interested in supporting a practice throughout Europe where we see biodiversity in relation to other sustainability concerns, other environmental concerns, which the EIA and the SEA provides a good platform for. So really to also support the system thinking and make sure that when we support biodiversity concerns and objectives, that we also keep in mind the other policy areas, the different policy objectives that are underlying these different environmental themes that we have in the two directives and in the national legislations in the countries that are also represented here today. So in the project, in the work package 2, we started out with developing a benchmark. We're doing other things, but today we're focusing on the benchmark. And the benchmark, as you can see here, the front page of which is available to you, the aim was to identify the current best practice guidance of integrating biodiversity in environmental assessment. So we explored international best guidances for how could we do this. And we focused on why should biodiversity be integrated? How should we integrate biodiversity and assess? And how should we actually integrate? This is now reported in the benchmark report. And today we are focusing on the second part, which is the comparison of the current best practice guidance to the current actual practice, and with this aim of improving the practice. So we have this overall good practice guidance now, and then we have explored throughout these countries that are represented to what extent is practice actually reflecting this best practice guidance. And we are in the benchmark, we developed 10 themes as are represented here in the table on the left. And that led to 16 indicators. And as you can see, they represent many different themes that we can consider while integrating biodiversity into impact assessment and use impact assessment as a means for supporting biodiversity. It's about significance, the knowledge that we use, how we consider synergies, trade-offs, how we mitigate, and so forth. So represent a range of themes and thereby also indicators. We have been through practice in the countries, and there's no doubt that we have a lot of data that we would like to share with you, but we can't share all of it today because that would simply not be feasible for the time and arena that we have. So we have decided to focus on these 4 themes: the knowledge or the types of knowledge that we see are being used, Secondly, the synergies and trade-offs, which is reflects back to the part that I mentioned about the broad concept of environment, that we have to have a system thinking while integrating biodiversity. Thirdly, ecosystem services. And finally, mitigation and enhancement of biodiversity values. So these 4 themes and results I will now present to you. But first, just so you know the basis for the results, we have analyzed 200 reports. And here you see the distinction or the division between the 4 countries and how many SCA reports and how many EIA reports. In Denmark, we have some combined, but they are now distributed or divided for SCA and EIA reports. So you will only see EIA and SCA reports in the following. And this is the development or the development over time. And we have focused on the recent practice because we assume that we stand on the shoulders of each other and practice evolve over time and become better and better. But we also have some from some of the early years or for a longer period. But mainly from the last 5 years is what we have explored. Good. Before I present the results, I'll just mention the 3 questions that will be raised in the breakout rooms, because we would like to hear your reflection upon whether you can recognize these patterns that we will describe or I will present, and whether you see that they are representative from your perspective. Is it surprising to you, or is it what you would expect when you consider the practice from your own country? And thirdly, whether there are some, like the gaps that we will also present, they also represent some potentials. So the gaps between the best practice benchmark and the practice that we have mapped. So we're really curious to hear about your reflection. Why do we have these gaps? What could explain it? And possibly also, how can we minimize these gaps? So just to introduce to you what will be discussed in the breakout rooms. As I mentioned, it will be chaired by a project partner from your country who will take the notes on the arguments, reflections, and so on, and summarize in the final plenary or when we meet again after the breakout rooms. So let's go to the results from these 4 themes. The first one concerns knowledge, and the indicator here is concerns which type of knowledge is used for working with biodiversity in the environmental assessment. And here in the benchmark, we have made a distinction between expert knowledge, multidisciplinary knowledge, and local and indigenous knowledge. And here you can already see that there are some differences. There are also some similarities. There's no doubt that throughout the countries, the expert knowledge is the type of knowledge that is most common. That might not be so surprising. But on the other hand side, there are some results here that at least to some extent has surprised us, and we're curious to hear your view upon. And one is the use of multidisciplinary knowledge, which is very low in Denmark, in Spain, and in Germany, but in Portugal, rather high. And that can be multidisciplinarity, that could be from ecology, economy, sociology, in combination with more biological type of knowledge. That is one thing that struck us when we saw the results. Or where there are some differences between the countries. Another one is Denmark with the quite extensive use of local and indigenous knowledge. And it's not because we have indigenous people in Denmark, but there is quite extensive use of knowledge that are collected, you could say like bottom up from different NGOs, like BirdLife, for example, or something that we call Naturbasen, where people can register their or can submit their registration of different types and species in different geographies. So these are the type of knowledge that is referred to when we say local knowledge. So there we see some interest or some interesting results, but we might also see that there are some potentials here for us to expand the type of knowledge that goes into our environmental assessment practice, and that will then of course also be up to you to explore and discuss. The second one concerns ecosystem service, representing or unfolding the types of benefit that we receive from our ecosystems. And here the benchmark question is, how are ecosystem services used in the environmental assessment? And how you should read it is from the left to the right, that whether there is a mentioning, if the environmental assessment report is further acknowledging, is mapping ecosystem service, identifying, assigning value, evaluating, mitigating, monitoring. So the further you get on that line, the more ambitious integration of ecosystem service is explored. And here again, I represent Denmark in this case, and I can see we have a lot of potential here for considering ecosystem service in our practice, seemingly. While looking into our partner countries, it's a different case. It seems here, or our results indicate, that ecosystem service is more acknowledged, mentioned and acknowledged, and actually also ecosystem services identified within the environmental assessment report. So here again, we see some differences between the countries, and Denmark definitely stand out in relation to these results. But we also see across the countries that it seems like there are also potential still for us to, or for the environmental assessment practitioners to go steps further in integrating ecosystem service in environmental assessment, by also assigning the values, evaluating, mitigating, and monitoring the ecosystem services. Yes, the third theme that we will share with you, or the results for, concerned mitigation and enhancement. When we the underlying directives, EU directives for SCA and EIA, is only requiring mitigation, which means only in the cases where we have potential significant negative impacts, there is a need for mitigating. And mitigating in the hierarchy in the directives is that we can avoid, we can minimize, we can restore, and we can potentially also compensate. What we have also included in the benchmark is that we can use the environmental assessment also as a means for enhancing. So exploring other possibilities within a certain plan or project that are being assessed, other potentials for us to enhance biodiversity, build biodiversity values. Even though it's not mandatory or not legally required, we can still use the assessment as a process for that. So in the benchmark, we are asking or having these three elements. The first one is biodiversity impacts are mitigated in accordance with the mitigation hierarchy, which means avoidance, minimization, restoring, and compensation. So these are all the light greens here. All these ones. The second one is are impacts mitigated based on an analysis of residual impacts, which is represented here in the blue one. So in a way, so explicating that no, we won't have any residual impact. We will actually do the offset. So it will be either no net loss or there will be a net positive impact. The third one is whether the impacts are mitigated through enhancing biodiversity values. Then we're here. We are actually having positive impact or potential for positive impact. So these are the three elements that we have in the indicator for mitigation and enhancement. And the results looks like this. So on the left-hand side here, we have the mitigation in relation to the regulation, you could say, the mitigation hierarchy from avoidance to compensation. Middle, where there's also analysis of the residual impact or mitigation of that, and then finally enhancement. And first, the indicator of mitigation shows that there's actually a general low, except or especially in Denmark and in Spain, more mitigation or more use of the mitigation hierarchy is used in Portugal, in Germany. These are the percentages of the studied reports in the, I should have mentioned that. But the residual impacts is not having much attention in the reporting. On the other hand side, even though enhancement is not legally required, we were positively surprised, or not, maybe not surprised, but still that there is also a practice that goes beyond regulation, that we see enhancement of biodiversity. Of course, that can be used even further, and that is also something that could be interesting to hear your view upon, if we should go a step further and also use the environmental assessment instruments for enhancing biodiversity. Yes, maybe there was something here that could also be relevant because you can also see here there are some differences whether we're on the strategic level or we're on the project level, which I personally I'm very curious why we see these differences. More on in Spain on the strategic level, less in Portugal, and so there's something that at least sparked my curiosity. Why is it we see this? We don't know. So that's also why we're very, very grateful that you're here today to discuss these results. The final result we share is concerning the synergies and trade-offs. And these are the exploration of synergies and trade-offs between biodiversity and other sustainability aspects handling the environmental assessment. So that again concerns that we have a very broad concept of environment, and biodiversity is one important, but we should always, with environmental assessment and planning in general, find the optimum where we don't make any displacement, that we might solve one sustainability aspect just to create a negative impact for another aspect. So here the elements that are embedded or included in the benchmark is these four: whether synergies and trade-offs, if it's acknowledged that they exist; secondly, if they are identified; thirdly, if they are managed; and fourthly, if the trade-offs are taken into account in decision-making, if it's relevant. So again, it's the same line of thought that the longer we get towards the right-hand side, the more ambitious are synergies and trade-offs incorporated in the environmental assessment. There is various or varying degree of acknowledgement of synergies and trade-offs between the different countries, and also between the EIA and SCA in the different countries. Less identification of the synergies and trade-offs, less management, and less taken into account in decision making. Of course, we would like to see that the synergies and trade-offs are managed and not only mentioned, but also managed, and of course, if relevant, also taken into account in the decision making. Welcome back, all of you. I was so fortunate to join part of the discussion in the Danish group, and we agreed that we were almost just getting into it. So we could have spent more time, but I think that's a very good, it's a good indicator that this is something that concerns, or that is of concern, and there are also some both reflections, but also ideas of what is actually needed in order for us to progress. But before summing up, then I would like to give the word to each of the chair in the session room. And I know it's not fair to give you only a few minutes. So because you won't be able to, probably not be able to share all with us, but if you will please share some of what you perceive as the highlights. And then I'll just say to everyone, we will summarize the findings from this webinar and from the breakout rooms and share with you afterwards. Leah, will you start?
Yes, I can start. I was just arranging my sticky notes here. So if I may share my screen quickly, in the breakout room from Italy and Spain, we actually focused, of course, on Spanish, the Spanish documents that we've analyzed. And we had one participant, Francisco, who is a scientist working on biodiversity topics, but now he's shifted his attention actually to the developments of the energy sector because of how poorly designed environmental impact assessment and instruments are in Spain. So this is a main concern. And he brought his perspective, which we appreciate. I will try to summarize here. So we started by considering that, in his opinion, our results kind of reflect the pattern. And actually, he was surprised. He had a very low expectation, and he was surprised to see that at least some synergies and trade-offs were identified, for example, because in his opinion, this is really not the case. The things are not, environmental assessment instruments are not well designed, and they are poorly implemented in Spain. Then the discussion on what can we do and what are the gaps identified focused more on environmental impact assessment, not SEA, but EIA, and on the energy sector more specifically, so solar power plants and wind farms, for example. And we see many different things, but for instance, there is a limitation because projects are proposed by the companies, and the companies don't do a good job in the studies they conduct. So, and the people that they hire to conduct those studies are also binded by this client-customer relationship, so they don't disclose biodiversity values as they should. So there's a tendency to oversee biodiversity impacts and then implement badly designed measures, for example, and the government has no resources to check and see if the measures are being implemented well or not, and if the project has actually an impact or not. So this is very problematic, and unbiased experts are missing, and they are there. So the scientists, they want to be engaged. They try to engage. Some of them try to engage in the public participation, but they are not called to be part of the decision making, let's say, so they are not involved in the process. So those are the big things. And also lack of coordination. So measures are designed and implemented and they're not coordinated. And so we kind of live at the landscape level. This is poorly managed and biodiversity is poorly captured. So these are very things to be addressed.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you very much. Very much reflecting the governance around impact assessment and the structural, the institutional aspect. Thank you. Then Jenny, will you be happy to share from Germany, or should we go to?
Maybe we could go to other countries. Jenny.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Yang-Su. Margareta? I can
I-
see that you are writing and then
I was writing. I'm so sorry. I didn't put nothing in the middle, but I will do it right after. I just take the opportunity to take note, and it was a very rich debate. Thank you so much, everyone, for the inputs. We explore each of the points, but maybe I will maintain for just for timing purposes a discussion around the knowledge, that situation that happened to Portugal. There's this strategic in the first time strategic environmental assessment. It has a different approach in Portugal than in other countries. So in the onset, we start in this multidisciplinary integration of thematicses. That is a justification of why the high level of multidisciplinary knowledge and integration of knowledge around a strategic environmental assessment. In relation to environmental impact assessment, there's the studies are doing around the same objective, and also it is a practice that the coordinator also has the it's not the job, because it's not a job also, but to put an effort to make it coherent and to make interconnections and relations between the different themes that are being explored. One thing that was quite discussed was in terms of public participation, because if you remember, Portugal doesn't have a situation where we see this integration of local communities knowledge in the reports that were analyzed. We have a low engagement normally of the public in the environmental assessment practice, and we also have a low practice of scoping in engaging the public in the scoping phase. That's where maybe the integration is more visible and more and can provide an added value to the assessment per se. And we discussed, just to finish this, around a possibility. There's a lack of transparency, some culture of secrecy in terms of the proponents and their proposals. What do they have? That could be a justification. But there was also a positive message, or at least expectation, that why not the authorities, the environmental authorities and sectorial authorities, to take the lead and promote the public participation right in the scoping phase when they provide their institutional opinion. Yeah, very, very short. And just one point, it was this.
yes,
Thank you.
but we will have the possibility, and we'll
Yes.
take that to write it all together and share that with you afterwards. So Emilia, a few minutes
Yeah.
for Danish discussion.
Yeah, we also had a very nice discussion and had not enough time to get through everything, but I'll try to highlight some of the main points that we discussed. First, we talked about the fact that some of the discrepancies between EIA and SEA was maybe not as surprising, because there is a clear difference between the levels of planning in terms of how detailed the data is that we have there. And also in terms of how good our baseline knowledge is in the different countries as well. In Denmark, we have a very good digitalization infrastructure in place, which we see as perhaps as explaining our use of local knowledge specifically. So if we look at the first theme of knowledge, because we have our infrastructure to be able to collect citizen science data and actually collect this information from the public and use them in our environmental assessments. And that's something that we aren't sure how much of those same opportunities are available in other countries. Then we also had a note on the fact that we did not recognize that multidisciplinary knowledge was as low for Denmark as the results show, as a lot of the participants in the breakout room saw that we actually use a lot of perspectives from hydrologists and from biologists, maybe not so much on sociological perspectives. And with that, we got into this discussion of using, or the risk of perhaps getting very fluffy results when also having these multidisciplinary perspectives and kind of straying from technical and expert knowledge. And then we got into a bigger discussion on the use of objectives and the need for objectives to define different impacts on biodiversity. Yeah. And a lot of other discussion.
And
We'll have
much
to get
more.
back to. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
so it will be good to afterwards to write it all together. Thank you very much. And for our German partners, we will keep that to the written reporting. So we have time here at the end. We still have a few minutes left. And of course, on behalf of the partners of the project, I would like to say thank you very much for having interest in it and sharing your perspectives and your experiences within in the breakout rooms. I have also, or what we have discussed is that we would also like to hear if there are some topics or follow-ups you would like to receive or be more informed about. So if there is something concerning our project and also what we have shared today, is there something you would like to know more about from the project? Then we will be very happy to hear, so we can return to you. If there is anything else, you are also very welcome to write us who have participated today. You have also icons who are in charge of the communication. Have invited you, so icons will also be helpful in distributing if you have any questions or suggestions to the right persons in the consortium. So don't hesitate to return to us and write to icons or directly to those of us that you know of and that you would like to engage more with. I think that was how far we could go within 1.5 hours. We will share with you the benchmark report and send you that link. So if you're more curious about the other themes and indicators that we have, we will share with you the sum up of today's webinar. And then we will also, if we're allowed to, keep you posted on other developments, because we will continue this this analysis and I can also say within this work packages on impact assessment, we are developing some tools to be used for better integration of biodiversity, and your sharing today is also part of the information for that. So thank you very much. We will use that actively in the next step in our work. So with these words, I would like to say thank you very much for participating and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.